Right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ektron Developer Office Hours. I'm James Stout, Ektron's Principal Developer Evangelist, and today we're going to be talking about intranets and extranets, but as opposed to a couple of weeks ago, which was a very general discussion, this week we're focusing mainly on integrations into intranets and extranets, so pulling in third-party data, things of that nature. And with me, I've got a couple of really classy people. I'm going to go with classy today. And Richard, I'll let you introduce yourself and who you work for first.
My name's Richard Hubley. I work for Jazz Aviation. We're a regional airline up here in Canada. We operate many flights for Air Canada Express. It's our main client.
Okay, and Chris.
Yeah, Chris Statler. I work at Syscom Services. We're an elite Ektron partner. We've been working in Ektron for close to 6 years now. So we started way back in 8.0, and we've had all the way up to 9.1 now. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. So has it been 6 years since 8.0?
I think it's been around 6 years. Yeah.
That makes me feel very old. I remember 8.0 very vividly. Not very nicely, but vividly.
Yeah, I remember our first training instance. We were sitting up there. It was 8.0 just came out when we were up in Nashville for training. So
yeah. So glad to have you guys, and glad to be talking about intranets and extranets. I think it's a big thing right now. I think we're seeing a lot more adoption into newer technology. It seems like intranets and extranets are not always cutting edge. They're not always mainstream in terms of technology, but they're kind of catching up. And to me, that's an exciting thing. You're seeing more internal sites becoming, responsive design and more advanced integrations and things like that. Whereas I think a couple of years ago it was a smaller percentage, and you'd see that more on the public-facing marketing sites, again, commerce sites. But either way, that's just my opinion. So Richard, you are an Ektron client running JazzNet. Could you give us just an overview of what JazzNet is and how your organization's using it?
So JazzNet's our intranet site. It's accessed by people right across Canada, and we have a lot of information on there for corporate information. We do Message Center, which has our regulatory approval or monitoring for all of our pilots, maintenance crew, make sure that they're up to date on all the procedures. And we also have our Day of Ops section, which has all the tools that you need to do your job, all on one page for you. Makes it just trying to help everyone out.
That's the idea. Yeah, and then we were talking before the show, and that seems like that's a very heavily used part of the site, required for a number of people before they start their day.
Yep, very much so.
Yeah, so what kind of information are you putting out there, and who's the primary audience for your Day of Ops?
We have a lot of different departments on that each have their own Day of Ops page. So our pilots, co-pilots, they all have certain tools that they need to use on a day-to-day basis. We give all those to them on a single page, so they don't have to go looking around the rest of the site for items that they use frequently. Flight attendants, they have a separate set of tools that use, so they have a completely different page. Our maintenance personnel as well, along with our this operations controller, so our dispatch, and people who keep the planes flying and on schedule. So lots of different users, lots of different views, and some of it the same data. So
we all appreciate the guys who keep the planes on schedule.
Very true. Question for your membership about your members. Do you use membership users or CMS users to differentiate these different groups for pilots, etc.?
So all of our users are membership users, except for the 50 or so moderators that we have who are the CMS users.
You guys do membership groups? Do you do permissioning on content, targeting content, anything based upon those membership groups?
So we have a lot of permissioning based on membership groups, and our groups are all pulled from AD. So we don't have to manage the groups inside of Ektron; they're handled for us. And yeah, we have everything on our site is private and is partitioned out to the users who require it. So there is a lot of permissioning set up done in there.
And I'm sorry, James, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead, Chris. I don't want to interrupt.
Just the content that you're displaying is all Ektron-based content, or is there other third-party content that you're pulling to display to these users?
We have a lot of the content is inside Ektron. We do especially on the Day of Ops page, we do have links to the third-party websites and some internal sites as well, where they can get specific information. And for all the internal stuff, we try and keep it all Windows authentication, so you don't have to re-enter single sign-on from JazzNet. So that's our mantra going forward. We'll see. Some of the legacy stuff is still not single sign-on, but we'll get there.
All right, and you're pulling in, as we were talking earlier, you're pulling in some membership information from Active Directory, more than just groups and profile information.
Yep, we have specific profile information that we pull in as well. So we know which base you're located at, which office. We take your title and position. We also take some custom fields in as well, that so we know if you're a pilot, which plane you're trained on. And we also include their union group as well, so we know which union group it is. So in case there's some differences permission-wise or view-wise for different groups.
Great. And so I'm going to jump topic a little bit. I think that was a good initial overview of JazzNet, which I appreciate. And I do want to interrupt because I forgot to mention this earlier. Anybody who has questions, please reach out on Twitter using the EktronOH hashtag. Obviously, nice to have questions that are related to the topic that we're discussing, but we'll take any questions you want to post, so feel free. And so I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and Chris, I'm going to ask you, Syscom, I know, specializes in the association space. So what are the common systems, common types of systems that your association clients are connecting to with an intranet?
A lot of what our association clients are using and a lot of our clients are member-based organizations, and they use a unique kind of a CRM application called an AMS, an Association Management System. And this encompasses both customer information and e-commerce information. So it has a lot of information related to their business activities, and so our integrations are essentially like connecting to a Salesforce or a Microsoft Dynamics. And examples of that would be like Personify, Aptify, IMS, and Vectra.
Okay. What kind of an integration with those systems? So it's got customer information, it's got product information. I know that we've done an office hours before on an integration you've done with Personify.
Correct.
And you refreshed me a little bit on that earlier today, and that's a really awesome integration to be able to pull all of that product information and display it on the site directly out of the Personify AMS. But what about, I mean, is that very typical with the associations, or is it more about the customer and member information?
There's more than just the products, but we do also pull in the member information, and we store all that into Ektron, because based upon what wants to display, we could be targeting content based upon certain membership groups that they're in. We may be tagging them with certain
Oh,
time manage their account to display different information. We do that. There's the product pools, event pools, and a lot of this information is dynamically coming from these external AMSs. But we could also be pulling those into, say, smart forms, etc., if people want these to actually show up in their search results. That we actually create smart forms that would then link off to the product pages within the AMS systems.
okay. So we do have a question, and I'll throw it out there because I think it's probably something you've encountered. So Gary asks, what is the best way to deal with sign up for membership users versus CMS users when different required data is collected for each? So how do you segment the data that's collected for membership versus CMS?
Well, for the sign-up purposes, most of the times that's done within the AMS itself. So what we do is dynamically through a single sign-on method is when they actually are logging in on the AMS, and then we membership users. So we manage CMS users completely different. That's still all managed within the work area. There might be some staff that can be signed up for CMS, so based upon the different membership types that we could return back, we would either create a CMS user or a membership user based upon, so yes, a membership type status equals staff, or some other example.
Right. So I know a little bit more information about Gary's question because he was kind of commiserating on Twitter in the last day or two about it. He has a need to have membership users for whom he collects more information, more required information for his membership users than his CMS users. And
Through
so,
custom properties, is he trying to?
yeah, he's trying to do it through custom properties. And I assume, Gary, that it's just a sign up on the website or something like that, that it's not going through a third-party system. But I would say you could link to that extra data through SmartForm or something like that if you needed to move it off of the user object for whatever reason.
We have done that before also with some user profiles. If the user profiles are very extensive and you don't want to create 20, 30 custom properties, you can then create that smart form and tie it to the user account. We have done that before.
Yeah. So that would work. That'd be a way that you could segment it, and then all you would need is a custom property, either a property in the smart form to relate to the user or a custom property on the user to pull in the smart form.
Right.
So let's go back to your AMS integration. So you're using that for targeting content as well?
Yeah, so based upon what membership groups the user belongs to, when we actually bring the user into the system, we create the actual membership groups based upon what they have signed up for in the AMS, and then from there we can either tag them with a taxonomy that's related to the exact same membership group, or we can assign membership groups to different permissions of content. And so if a member logs in, they'll see one piece of content. A non-member logs in, they'll see a different piece of content.
Right. Yep. So are you using the targeted content widget for any of that targeting, or is it just filtering based on permissions and categories?
Filtering based upon permissions, or it could be based upon taxonomy assignments.
Okay. So I've seen that done with search as well. I've actually done that kind of filtering with search using taxonomy and custom properties, et cetera, and it works pretty quickly. That's the advantage of using search for something like that, is the speed of being able to filter that data. So no, I think that's very interesting. I know we have DXH connectors for CRM systems, but I'm not aware of any right now for the association systems. But that might be something that we could look into together, as building a repeatable connector into those systems for targeting and et cetera. So if there's a good use case there, I'd like to identify that with you. So I think there's some opportunity. All right, so we've got some typical systems. So let's talk a little bit. Richard, you guys have an upcoming integration planned out. Do you want to just give a high-level overview around that?
So part of our JazzNet, we have what's called alerts. This can be from weather alerts to more critical alerts for our system. So when one of these come out, we have a red banner that comes across the intranet site, then and can pass on a message. This is controlled by our admins, and we'd like to be able to push this out to some digital signage that we have inside of our offices as well, because if there is an alert message going out, well, not just people looking at our website should see it, but people in the offices as well. So we'd like to be able to push that to our signage.
Yeah, like massive snowstorm is going to hit Nova Scotia.
Exactly.
Yeah, we want to get that alert out. So let's. I'm going to take this over to you, Chris. Given that concept, what do you think would be a good discovery process around that for planning an integration of that type, or for planning any integration? I mean, you're going to have some similarities in discovery for any integration, but where would you start?
Well, I mean, a good place to start is to actually, establish your business goals. What are you trying to accomplish? And it sounds like they have that already. What they're trying to accomplish is get these alerts out to people and help notify of anything that's going on. But once you have your purpose, you want to establish, and once you have your purpose of the project and your business goals to measure against, you want to describe what should happen when somebody logs in. So if they log in, is it the alert always there? Is it a one-time alert? Once they click on it, do they not get the alert again? So just kind of defining what happens when that person logs in. And after you define kind of these functional requirements and business roles, you can help determine what integration points that you have. So you got your points of integration, your data points, what you need to pull over, what you need to show, and from there, the where and how will kind of drive toward the understanding of resources, what it'll take to implement, and timeline and overall budget.
Well, you're talking about logging into the website and what happens there. The use case here is pushing that out to a display that is not a single person display, but it's a TV that hangs over a cube farm or something like that, so that everybody in the office is able to see the alert.
Okay, so like a cube farm at the airport, so for all these people that might be there, so this is pushing out that kind of system.
Right. Is that accurate, Richard? I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, no, that is pretty accurate. So we have signs in our hangar when we do for aircraft maintenance. We have it in our cube farms. We have some in our lunchrooms as well.
So okay, so I'm not sure how those work. They're connected into your intranet, so then you can just push out messaging to those individual signs.
Yeah, so they have a separate type of content management system, I guess. Really, they have a sign display application. So we'll need to. Well, what we already do is we already pull some content from Ektron. So we have set up pages on Ektron that are formatted nicely to display on these screens, and we direct the screens to that website for a certain amount of time. So what needs to happen is that Ektron will need to push an information message to maybe switch to a different display on those screens. So instead of showing this website, we wanted to immediately flip over to the JazzNet page with that alert up. So that's some of the integration points that we're going to be working on in the near future.
So these aren't just your typical scrolling message boards, they're actually web-based, so you can actually view kind of like a website or like a simple web page?
You can, yeah, it has a layout engine, and it includes widgets. A widget can be a flash file, it can be a web page, and they have a whole slew of custom widgets that they have up there too. So you can handle like HTML5 custom, almost like a control that you put in there.
So you would manage this alert within the Ektron system and then push it to this display kiosk, so to speak?
Yep. So and the key there is that so we have the content on Ektron. That's great, but we need to know when, more or less, when a new piece of information is added there, when it becomes active, so that we can we need to make an action on our other system to flip to the web page that's required. Make a web page change.
Now, would this have to be site-specific, or is this something that would have to be for your for all systems?
We'd like to drive it off of permissions, probably. So the sign would access Ektron based on permission or something like that. That is a little more into the details that we haven't quite gotten, but we definitely do want to limit it, especially for weather alerts. We don't need to say that a thunderstorm in Toronto across Canada.
So you're going to treat the sign as an actual user that would have to sign in and then have permissions to certain pieces of content?
Yeah, it doesn't have. It's not a Windows device, so it doesn't pass a Windows credential. So we might have to be fancy with the query string that it might use to display, or somewhere else in that integration that notifies which screens. The screens in their management, you're able to tag them with identifiers, so we'd probably use that type of solution to tell which ones to flip over. If it's a Nova Scotia sign, then it shows Nova Scotia weather alerts.
So let me ask a question. Do the screens have APIs in their software that Ektron could talk to directly?
They do, yep. They use a WebSocket API type communication so that you can actually use them. Like, you can use a remote control to control the screen, like from a smartphone.
Okay. So I'm wondering, and Chris, I'd be glad to have your opinion on this. What if you could set up strategies that were cognizant of either which folder it's in? So I think you're segmenting not just on groups and permissions, but you have folders that represent all of the locations as well inside the CMS for those alerts. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, we have special folders for the alerts and.
So do you have an alert folder for Toronto, for example?
I'd have to look, but I would, yes.
Okay, so well, this is the idea. So if you could do a push strategy, whenever an item is published in that folder, that would actually communicate with that API and say, don't use this configuration file for the next 5 minutes, use this one or something like that.
Could be a great need for extending the work area on a publish event or something that you could push it out based upon.
Right. Yeah. Well, we have the strategies. We could do it, on a publish event or on an async event or something like that. The strategies are available to do that in 9.0 plus. So, wonder if that would be a viable integration rather than trying to figure out how to make it switch over to display a different web page. Or, well, I guess you could push a display a different web page message to it, but you would overcome the authentication issue in that case if you just push the data directly.
Yeah, I'm assuming that each kiosk would have to have a specific ID, and you could have that ID somewhere tied to the specific alerts, so you know which one to push it to.
You could have a smart form and say these are the IP addresses, these are the IDs, or all of the points for each location. Put that into a smart form. Strategy could read the smart form and push to each of those instances or each of those devices. Would be a possibility. And it would be something if you add displays or remove displays, you could modify that smart form accordingly. Just throwing that out. I like brainstorming that kind of stuff. If you didn't notice, it's fun. That's the kind of thing. I got a crazy idea. Okay, I'm with you. You bring me a crazy idea, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah,
I always like to hear that "what if we could" question.
Yeah, what if we could do this? Okay, I bet we can. Let's try. Yeah. You had me at crazy. Exactly right. So let's talk a little bit about doing these integrations in a safe way, because you can do any kind of development in an unsafe way, but particularly with an integration. How would you go about making it accept failure? The third-party system goes down. What happens, and how do you try to build an integration in such a way that it's upgrade safe, that it's extensible? Chris, do you have any thoughts around that?
Well, one thing that we like to try to do is not tie any of these AMOS integrations to a specific version of Ektron. And I've seen that a lot happen where people would actually have their compiled DLLs with the Ektron functions and the AMS functions wrapped together, and then somebody else gets this later on after an 8.5 upgrade to a 9.1, and all your DLLs are compiled within that larger DLL. Now you have reference issues, and we've seen that happen quite a bit. So it's a really good practice to keep those Ektron functions separate from your integration functions.
Yeah, so you would suggest then building a separate class library for an integration with a third-party system, and just put that DLL into Ektron and use it from the
Correct.
Ektron site, but not put Ektron into your integration. Put the integration into Ektron.
Correct.
Yeah. So Gary says he has no shortage of crazy ideas, only a shortage of time. Gary, that's what Twitter is for. If you don't share them, what's this all been about? All right, so let's share those crazy ideas. I love crazy ideas, especially if it's a crazy idea that a lot of people can use and we can sell. It's even better.
Yeah, Twitter's just a whole lot of crazy ideas in 160 characters or less, right?
Something like that, yeah. A lot of crazy people with crazy ideas. That's why I fit in. Yeah. So, what do you guys think is next? I'm just going to toss out a random question. What do you think is going to be the next big thing in intranets and extranets, or what are you seeing right now that's a little bit different from, say, 5 years ago?
I think a lot of these, as of late, they've been using intranets a lot more extensively for document collaboration. They've been using them for basically corporate culture changes in their platforms. They're using a lot of internet forums where people can get on and have opinions and get information more easily about the companies or anything related to their projects. There's been a push to do project management using these intranets. And a lot of these intranets are becoming quite large.
Yeah, so definitely bigger communication platform is what I'm getting from you there. It's just communication in all of its forms, whether it's community asynchronous or whether it's conducting business through that communication. So Richard, with JazzNet, do you have any bidirectional, or do you have any user-generated content where people are talking to each other on JazzNet right now?
We do have a little. JazzNet just went over a very big rewrite recently, so our site's now responsive design, and we do have some blogs from some of the execs or some of the higher ups. So they blog, we allow comments, and I can definitely say that it is a fairly large site now. Definitely a lot of content on there.
Yeah, which is a good thing. As long as it's valuable content and people are using it. And I think that's something I think is different. Is an intranet 5 years ago was probably just almost entirely broadcast. And it's hard to get people to change that from billboard site with, here's the information. If you build it, they will come, kind of mentality, to trying to make it more engaging in general. All right, so we are at the half-hour mark. I don't want to keep you guys any longer than I promised, so we'll cut it here. If anybody has any follow-up questions for Chris or Richard, feel free to reach out on Twitter using the EktronOH hashtag. If they don't respond, I'll email it to them or something. We'll figure it out. All right,
So,
so I definitely appreciate you guys coming on. A lot of good information. There's just so much that you can cover with intranets and extranets. I think something else that we could talk about is extranets specifically, and people building their own mobile apps for their organizations, and some of those kinds of things. I mean, it's a bigger thing now than it ever has been. So
absolutely, absolutely.
oh,
So,
we could probably spend a day talking about that and nothing else. So I appreciate your time, and hopefully have both of you on again soon.
all right, James, thanks. Appreciate it.
Right,
Thank you very much.
right.